late afternoon, Nick soars over the Caloosahatchee Bridge where Tamiami Trail crosses the river. On the south shore are large estates. In the late 19th century, Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, and Harvey Firestone built beautiful houses, and other people have too. Seawalls line the river. When Nick reaches the midpoint bridge, he flies to the north shore. It's called 4 Mile Point. The Cape Coral Parks and Recreation Department manages this land as 4 Mile Cove Ecological Preserve. Nick lands in a black mangrove, and crabs scuttle away from him. 2 women are walking along the boardwalk. One is pushing a stroller. In the stroller, a little boy is eating a rice cake and dropping crumbs. The first woman says,
"The trail guide says that lightning killed this area of mangroves."
The second woman says,
"I wonder why they were dead. Look how much sun comes through."
A rice cake crumb drops. Nick watches a crab find and eat it.
It says here that the soil is so wet that the lightning charge spread out.
The woman reading the trail guide stops and looks at the muck.
"I didn't know that."
The second woman keeps walking. Nick flutters beside the pneumatophores, and the crab zips away. The woman with the trail guide says,
"I can see the small holes that are burrows for the fiddler crabs."
The second woman looks back over her shoulder.
"Come on, it's getting late. I want to see the cove. The Canoe Trail has picnic shelters built out in the water."
The woman with the trail guide hurries to catch up. A breeze pushes more rice cake crumbs into the water. When a crab nibbles a crumb, Nick snatches the crab and eats it. Hi, I'm Carol Mahler, author of Adventures in the Charlotte Harbor Watershed. Today, I'm in the television studios of the School District of Lee County, and with me today is Melissa Cain Nell.
Hi, Carol. How are you doing?
Very good.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for having me back today. Today, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the different kinds of mangrove trees. Now, if you remember before, we talked about how mangroves are a type of tree. But did you know here in Florida, we have 3 different kinds of mangroves? The red mangrove is the tree that grows closest to the water's edge. They're often covered by high tide, and they have long prop roots that reach from their branches down to the water. Now, for those of you that are following along in the classroom, hold up your hands, and the way to remember red mangroves is they have roots that hang down from the branches, just like this. So the second kind is the black mangroves. They grow among the red mangroves, kind of mixed in there. And they have pneumatophores, which are breathing tubes that stick up from their roots. They kind of look like snorkels. The pneumatophores work like the snorkel so that they can breathe in the waterlogged soil. So we've got our red mangroves, and then our black mangroves have snorkels sticking up from the ground. White mangroves are the third type, and they grow farther away from the water. They can have either prop roots or pneumatophores that can get kind of tricky, but a lot of them don't have either of them. What you can see on them, though, is right at the base of the leaf, they have thick, rounded leaves, and at the base of them, they have 2 little round glands. So we have red mangroves, black mangroves, and white mangroves.
Wow, that is so cool. Melissa, thanks for sharing that with us. Now, let's say I was on a boardwalk like this picture behind me,
Okay.
and I'm really not sure how to tell the difference between the different kinds of mangroves. Help me out.
Okay, so it can get kind of tricky because you're looking at a lot of green and brown, but if you look really closely, you'll notice that there are some differences. Black mangroves, where on earth do you guys think they get their name? Well, it actually comes from the bark. It's not dark black, but it is a much darker color, and it's smooth. And their leaves, they're so cool, they're kind of a silvery color.
Ooh, that sounds pretty.
It's really neat. The red mangroves, same name, same idea with the name rather. The bark is sort of a reddish color. And of course, if you look for those prop roots hanging down, that's a good indication. Their leaves are also a really bright spring green, so you can tell them pretty easily. The white mangrove can be a little bit harder. Sometimes we might not even see them, but if you look at the bark of the tree, it's very rough. So that's another good way to be able to tell them apart.
Thanks. Now, you know, we had that bad hurricane, Hurricane Charlie, back in 2004.
We did.
And I see still out in the harbor, I see all these dead mangroves. So what's going to happen?
Well, it's important to remember that even though we see dead trees, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not being used. Remember, we talked a little earlier about how mangroves really help build habitat. So leaving them in place is important because birds can land on them, fish and crabs can swim through them and be protected from other animals, and their roots are still holding the soil together and protecting the land. The great news is mangroves are built to thrive. So each year, more and more seeds are going to wash in from other mangroves all over the state and rebuild the community.
Wow, that's really cool. Well, thanks for being here with me today, Melissa. I've really enjoyed it.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
At dawn, Nick flies over the Cape Coral Bridge. He passes the boat ramp at Pepper Tree Point and flies into the shadows beneath the fishing pier. He hears people walking and sees lines from fishing poles in the water. A boy pulls up a fish on his hook. Nick hears people crowding around. The boy says,
Hey, Ma, what kind of fish is that? Is this?
I don't know, but it's beautiful.
His mom says. The boy persists.
I want to know what kind of fish it is.
The fish wiggles and drops of water from the fish fall near Nick. A man says,
That's a redfish. This stretch of water is full of them. It's called Redfish Cove.
The woman asks.
Is it good to eat?
The man nods his head.
Yes, ma'am, but it's not big enough to keep.
The woman says.
Such a beautiful fish. Throw it back, son.
The boy slips the fish from the hook. He strokes its body as if he were petting a dog. The man says,
You shouldn't rub a fish like that. It can hurt a special film on the skin that protects the fish from getting sick.
The boy flings the fish over the railing.
Bye-bye, fish.
Nick watches the fish hit the water, but it is too big for him to eat. He flies to the roof of the shelter at the end of the pier. Looking toward the shore, he sees a restaurant, the Yacht Club Community Park beach, and a playground. Children sound as loud as gulls as they play. On either side of the beach are seawalls. They contain the lawns of houses and form the banks of Cape Coral's canals. Nick turns to the river. Large and small boats zoom inside the channel. Across the water, he sees big houses and buildings. The river seems as wide as a lake or bay. When Nick hears footsteps walking toward him, he flies away. Hi, I'm Carol Mahler, author of Adventures in the Charlotte Harbor Watershed. Today I'm at the television studios of the school district of Lee County, and with me is Rick Tully.
Hi, I'm with the Environmental Education Program here in the school district of Lee County, and what I'd like to do this time is read some words from Dr. Charles O'Connor. Dr. O'Connor was on the staff of the Environmental Education Program when he wrote this text, and he's now a science teacher at Lexington Middle School. He wrote about canals. Canals are dug for many reasons, often to drain water off the land. During Florida's wet season, storms dump great amounts of rain. Roads and buildings can be flooded. Rainwater is necessary to nourish plants and animals. It also soaks deep into the ground and restores our supply of underground water. This aquifer is used for drinking water. Unfortunately, canals speed this rainwater into the ocean. Canals create another problem called saltwater intrusion. If our aquifer water level becomes too low, the ocean is able to push salt water into the aquifer, making it unfit for drinking or agriculture.
Thanks for reading that, Rick. And do you know of any place in our Charlotte Harbor watershed where that saltwater intrusion has happened?
Unfortunately, it's happened in many areas in our watershed, and one of the largest was the city of Cape Coral. Cape Coral was built in a very low, flat area, and it was easy to dig canals from the Caloosahatchee and from the Charlotte Harbor drainage area into what now are residential areas. That would give everybody access to the water. You can have water right in the backyard. Those canals, when they were dug in, also allowed the salt water, the tidal water from the Caloosahatchee River, to move much further inland than it ever had in the past. And that water moving inland percolated down through the soil and contaminated the aquifer. The aquifer is that layer of rock and stone underneath the ground that we draw our drinking water from. When the salt water got in there, we had a major problem with the drinking water that we were trying to extract from the ground. What we've tried to do to solve that problem is to put small dams on those canals to eliminate the movement of the salt water into the canals and hold fresh water on the center parts of Cape Coral. And that's helped to solve the problem, and that's part of the way that we are trying to restore things in South Florida to the conditions before we came in and started trying to improve them for what we thought were good human reasons.
Well, and people love canals.
Yeah, wouldn't you like to live on the water? I would. Everybody seems to want to have a house on a creek or a stream or a pond or a canal. It just adds to the pleasure of life that you get. Unfortunately, we have to balance how we use the land with the natural conditions of the land and try to maintain all of the amenities that we get from water, from the land, and from the aquifers under the land.
Well, Rick, thanks for talking with me today. I've really enjoyed it.
It has been a pleasure.
At the west end of Redfish Cove, land juts into the river. Tall pines gave it the name Piney Point. Nick lands there and looks across the river. The south shore also curves into the river. At the west end of Iona Cove is Shell Point, where a parking lot surrounds tall buildings. Between Piney Point and Shell Point, the river is narrow. In the dusk, Nick watches boats with red, green, and white lights in the channel. Nick flies along the north shore between Piney Point and Sword Point. Moonlight sparkles on the water and reflects on the shiny mangrove leaves. Turning south, Nick flies over the mouth of the river. Where it flows into San Carlos Bay is called a delta. Many oysters grow here, one on top of another. The huge mound is called an oyster reef or shoal. At low tide, it looks like an island. More than 100 years ago, this oyster shoal blocked the way for boats to go upstream. Part of it was destroyed when a channel was dug. The south end of the delta is Punta Rassa, which used to be a busy port for shipping cows in the 19th century. Today, Punta Rassa is where the Sanibel Causeway begins. Nick veers away from the headlights of traffic. As he flies towards Fisherman Key, he squawks. He hears another bird make the same call. He watches another yellow-crowned night-heron land on a tidal flat to the east of the key. Moonlight gleams on the wet sand. There are others like him feeding there, and even some black-crowned night-herons. Maybe Nick has found a home. Hi, I'm Carol Mahler, author of Adventures in the Charlotte Harbor Watershed. Today, I'm in the television studios of the School District of Lee County, and with me is Toni Westland.
Hi everyone, I'm Toni Westland, Supervisory Refuge Ranger at the J.N. Ding Darling National Wildlife Refuge out on Sanibel Island.
Toni, thanks for being here today, and you're going to read part of the book for us.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm going to read The Florida Gulf Refuges, written by you, of course. Beginning in the early 1900s, many mangrove islands in Lee and Charlotte counties were set aside as wildlife refuges. People wanted to protect these areas for roosting and nesting birds. Some islands are small, others are large, like Fisherman Island. In the past, people lived in or visited fish camps there. As a part of the Matlacha Pass National Wildlife Refuge, the largest refuge. It includes 23 islands throughout Matlacha Pass, which is the water between Pine Island and Cape Coral. There are 4 other refuges: Island Bay National Wildlife Refuge, Pine Island National Wildlife Refuge, Caloosahatchee National Wildlife Refuge, and the J.N. Ding Darling National Wildlife Refuge.
Toni, thanks for reading that. Can you tell us a little bit more about refuges?
You know, refuges are very special places because it's wildlife first. So we want people to come out and enjoy and visit, but we always have that mission of taking care of the wildlife.
Now, how will I know if I come to a refuge? What are the marks of it?
Yeah, so all refuges have this beautiful sign, and our symbol is the blue goose. This was actually drawn by J.N. Ding Darling, and now is found on every refuge. So even when you're out in the water and you're visiting Caloosahatchee and you see it, you might see this sign as you zoom by in your boat or on land at refuges that you can visit.
Now, if I see that sign and I'm out in my boat, am I allowed to go there?
These are protected rookery islands, so you are not to go there. And they're mangrove rookery islands, so there's no place to actually set foot.
Okay, but is there a refuge that I can visit?
Yeah, so we would love for everyone to come out, and we've got lots of activities going on year-round at the J.N. Ding Darling National Wildlife Refuge on Sanibel.
Now, I think we have a picture of that behind us here.
Yes, that is our beautiful refuge. You know, we have an education center that's free and it's open daily, but this is where most people go, where we want them to go. It's a 4-mile wildlife drive. You can take your car, your bike, you can hike it, you can take a tram. There's all sorts of different ways. You can paddle it in a kayak. So every day is different at the refuge.
Wow, it sounds like a lot of fun.
Yes.
Thank you for being here today. I've really enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you.
For free classroom materials, please visit our website at www.chnep.org.